Conference, your source for JVM knowledge.
Okay, so we are going to start. First, I would like to make some questions to the audience. So, how many people here is publishing apps on Google Play by his own? Okay, 3. The other people, I suppose you are working for a company that develops Android apps and publishes them. Okay, so originally this speech was about making a living on Google Play, but Sergio commented that he wanted to make an Android tracking grid, so I accepted to make it. And later on Christmas, I have a problem with Google Play, so I kind of modified this speak and added this tale and other horror histories. You will see it at the end. Why? So I am Pablo Martinez. I am developing apps since 2009. I run Nobody's my own company, but it has been a long journey. Probably the first question we are talking about Google Play and revenues is it actually possible to make a living on Google Play? Well, there are not much information on the internet about the revenues, but I have been able to find this from InMobi. InMobi is a company that makes mobile advertising like AdMob, and they make a survey between their customers. So as you can see, about 87% of the people make less than 1,000 euros a month, and only the 9% of them were able to make more than 1,000 euros, and if we were going higher, just 3% more than $10,000. So we could say it's not really easy to make a living actually on Google Play. If you are living with your parents, probably with less than 1,000 euros, you are happy. But if you have to live alone in your own home with your family, etc., it's not enough. Happily, I can say that I'm part of this 9%, so I can make a living on Google Play. When I say that, many people say, "Hey, Pablo, you're a lucky guy. You are living on Google Play." But what I think at this moment is I like this quote by Coleman, is, "I am very, very lucky. The harder I work, the more I seem to have." And what I actually answer is, getting successful developing apps is rather a marathon of sustained work than a matter of being lucky. I'm not making a living on Google Play since day one. It took me a long time. So I'm going to explain a bit how I get there. I graduated in 2009, 10 years ago, as an industrial engineer, specialized in electricity and electronics. So I'm not a computer science. I'm not a software engineer. I knew how to program. I was used to program in language C microcontrollers. So this is my background. And later on, I switched my careers. 2009 was not the best moment in Spain, nor in Zaragoza, my hometown, nor probably in Europe or the whole world. When I was studying in Zaragoza, I have been told many times, "Don't worry, before you end your degree, you will get a job here in Zaragoza." But that didn't happen at this time. So I got an offer as a PCB designer, this kind of boards, printed circuit boards, for a traffic control system in Madrid. So I had to move, and I leave my hometown. I moved to Madrid. Getting this job and moving to Madrid made me learn about tackling public transit. Public transit in a big city like Madrid is not like Zaragoza. In Zaragoza, you just go walk into places, you just get a bus, it's enough. In Madrid, I actually was working in Torrejón de Ardoz, it's a city in the suburbs, so I had to take 2 metro lines and 1 cercanías train to get there. And I have to say, while metro maps and metro networks are more or less well designed for cercanías, the kind of signs they use are a bit confusing for foreigners. And so this mix of events started to toward me to my Android career. Because at the very same time, I heard the first news about a Google mobile operating system that allowed to create apps and publish. It was like the same as Apple did with the iPhone, but it sounded more developer-friendly to me. So the very same year, in 2009, at Christmas, I gave myself a self-Christmas present. It was this LG Flipboard phone. I have to say it was terrible because the screen was those so-called resistive. So they resisted to touches, actually. And I started to try to build an app. And as I had problems with public transit, I thought, well, let's do just a stupid app that has an embedded metro map, just for fun and just for me, because I was going to use it. So the first problem I had was that I was a C programmer. I had no idea about object-oriented programming, nor Java, nor the Android framework. So I started to learn it by myself late at night. So just early 2010, I figured how to make this first app, and I decided to publish it. If you remember, those times, all apps were like something Android. The icons were droids. The colors were mainly green. It was really awful, and there were no ads. So the only way to make money with an app was to sell it. So I decided to put it with typical 099 price tag. So let's see some of the screens of my first apps. I know they look terrible today. Actually, if you look at the first one, the name of the first app was Metro de Madrid. Later, I discovered how to improve naming and make it more search-friendly. So I finally changed the name to Madrid Metrobús Cercanías. Many people still think it's an awful name, but it's great for discoverability in the market. So I keep it. As you can imagine, I just sold 1, 2, 3 apps a month. So I made less than 10 euros a month. It was like just useless as a way of making money. But something changed really fast. Google acquired AdMob at the end of 2009. So in 2010, we were able to start to make money with ads. So that meant you could publish a free app for everybody and put a small banner at the bottom or the top or whatever. So then from 1, 2, 3 downloads a month, suddenly I started to go to 100 downloads a day, thousands of downloads a month. It was incredible. And as you can imagine, I was able to get much more money with ads than with the paid version of the application. I kept updating and adding new features during 3 years until 2012. I started to make to become really an Android developer as a hobby. And then a moment came in 2013 where I had to take a decision. I met in a developer conference a recruiter from Samsung, and he offered me to switch careers and become a software engineer. I was a bit afraid because, as I told before, I consider myself at that time an electronic engineer. I was more used to make circuits than to make software. And there were more things to take in account because if I accepted the offer from Samsung, I had to stop developing Android apps as a hobby and also being part of software of open source software, contributing to GitHub, because due to intellectual property issues with Samsung, you cannot do nothing outside Samsung. So at that time, I make some hundreds of euros with my apps. So I tried to sell them, and nobody wanted to buy my apps. I contacted many software companies, big, small. All of them told me, I'm not going to buy your app. I can make a clone and do the same. So finally, what I did is I had a friend, also a software engineer, and I proposed him to borrow my apps to him. He will be able to update them, get the money, and so on. But if I left Samsung in the future, I will get my code back, and we will think about doing something together. So we agreed that. So finally, I accepted the position at Samsung, and I switched career. I never wrote again a printed circuit board, and I not regret it. Right. Today, I can say that I not regret it. My experience at Samsung was incredible. I was able to learn a lot. I meet a lot of engineers. I traveled to many places in the world. I work in Seoul, in San Francisco, Berlin, Warsaw. I cannot say much about what I did there because I was part of the R&D team, so we are not able to speak about what we did. But we did some things related with smartwatches at those times. The first watches were in the market, and I also worked a lot on the security part. If you have Samsung phones, you probably have seen that there is something called Knox that allows to run enterprise software and apply bring your own device policies on your phones. So I just spent 2 years at Samsung because after 2 years, I felt that the barrier that put Samsung to me with developing things on my free time was keeping me out of earning more value. So at some point, I talked with my friend, and we finally decided that I was going to quit Samsung, and we were going to start a company together. And we were going to try to make a living doing applications. So at the end of 2014, I resigned, and in January we built and we registered our company, a 2-guy company. Well, we had a problem at this time. We were earning about hundreds of euros with our apps, but that money wasn't enough to 2 people to live on. So for a while, I had to share my time with another 2 startups So while I was developing for Green Lion Soft, I was also working for GlowNet. They were they are still a company. They are a successful company. They develop software for music festivals that run on Android devices and allow people to enter to a festival with a RFID bracelet and pay and check if they are allowed to enter to a concert, etc. I also worked for a while at Softimis, till the end of Softimis, more than a year. They were a startup that built a grocery supermarket app in the UK, but at the end of the 2016, we had to close. So I also quit Softimis. But this time, it was 2017, we were already earning a few thousand euros. So for the very first time, we were able to devote 100% of time to ourselves, to our company, to our apps, and get independent. So I would like to share some tips we have learned after 10 years of coding. We have published more than 20 apps. Today, not all of them are on the market, just a few of them, because you have to experiment to see what works, what doesn't work, and so on. So I will say that you have to focus on a niche. You probably can compete with big players. For example, you cannot expect to make a Airbnb again or this kind of apps. You would rather focus on a specific need for maybe a reduced amount of people, and it will work because big companies are not interested in niche because they are not profitable enough for them. But for a two-guy company, it's enough. And I have to say, you can publish an app, but you cannot expect to get money right away. By our experience, you only get if the app works, you have to wait at least 2 years to start seeing something, a stream of revenue that is enough or interesting enough to keep the application alive, and also the listing in the market, in the Google Play Store. You have to invest on advertising. For all of our apps, we still invest. You don't have to invest a lot of money. Just maybe 1 or 2 euros per app a day is enough to keep the application getting installed and stay up. Of course, you have to try to automate everything. We are a two-guy company, so we don't have a lot of resources. When we need to do a lot of work, sometimes we hire people, freelancers, to help us. But mostly of the time, we are just 2 people. And we run our code on a continuous integration server. We run tests, etc., and publishing, because you are going to save a lot of time, and you need your time to keep coding. Of course, modular is your code. As we are developing a bunch of apps, not just just one app, it's important to make libraries and share the code and avoid writing the same things again and again. This one is important. We are programmers, and we don't have a good taste. As you could see in the first slide, you have to delegate to professionals. So every time we need to make something new or something that needs a bit more than material design, that more than plain material design, we hire a freelance and make a wireframe and use a sketch to get the interface and make an app. What we have learned also during those years is that as we just monetize the apps with advertising, that banners is what works for us, because we don't make games. We make kind of utility apps. We make transportation apps. We make application that shows you the current electricity prices, the next tide, the pollution that is in Madrid, etc. So people don't accept interstitial in these kind of apps. Also, we have been trying a lot of advertising networks, and we have found that there is a problem. As you know, Google is kind of a monopoly of advertising, and if you try other networks, you get more price or better revenues, but many times they don't have enough inventory. Inventory, I mean, you request a banner and the API responds that there is no banner to show. So with AdMob, you always get ads, but it's the network that pays less. So I would suggest to use mediation, this kind of networks that use AdMob as a basis, but also get ads from other networks. With this structure, you always get an ad. Maybe it's not the best ad because it's from AdMob and it's cheap, but you keep earning money. Now starts the horror part of the speak. If you have a company or you work for a company that makes an app or apps as a business model, you have a problem. At least today we have all a problem, because you cannot control who is behind Google Play, and you cannot control if your Google Play account is going to be closed. So last year I published this tweet. The Android developers always remember that Google Play may terminate your dev account at any time without prior notice, without any explanation, and you may have to close your company and seek for a new tomorrow. This is how it works. This happened to me in Christmas, and I almost had to seek for a new job. As a resume, as you can imagine, everybody at Christmas at work don't pass new code, keep features calm, and I'm from Zaragoza, I did the same. So at the beginning of December or half December, I decided, well, from now till next year, I'm not going to publish any new update. I will keep working, but I want to have a calm Christmas. I don't have to think in bugs. All is working and all is stable. And when I was at my hometown in Zaragoza, I got an email, 24th in the morning. Your Google Play account has been closed. And it mentioned it's due to prior violations of associated accounts outlined in previous emails. And I was like, what? Previous emails? I have no, it's the first email I got. My personal account was terminated. My colleague's personal account was terminated. Our company account was terminated. So we have no apps at that moment. And at the bottom of the email is wrote, and don't try to make a new account. We will close it again. So it's like you are not going to be able to develop apps never. In the same email, it says, if you think it's an error, you can fill this form and ask for an appeal. Because surprisingly, Google Play is one of the only services that doesn't have customer service. AdMob has customer service. Google Ads has customer service. Sometimes you can even phone. You sometimes can even meet in person with people from Google to help to solve issues, but not for Google Play. So December 25, just exactly 24 hours later, just the same minute, same second, 24 hours later, I got another email, a template email, a canned email, that was telling that my appeal has been rejected. 25 of December in the morning, it was like, is somebody working today at Google? So at that moment was like, what, 10 years long under career, totally killed for Christmas. So as you can imagine, I was devastated. I didn't know what to do. And what is worse, I was just moving from Zaragoza to Pamplona. So it was in the worst moment of a personal life that is moving to another city. I had lost my job. I didn't know what to do. So I remember the night of the 13th of December. I just woke at 3 a.m. in the morning. I couldn't sleep. And I thought, wow, I want to share that. If I'm going to write an open letter. So I woke at 3 a.m. in the morning and I started to write an article on Medium. And I thought, okay, I'm going to explain what happened to me. I'm going to address this letter to Parnima Kochikar. He's the responsible of Google Play division. Google Play division is like an independent division inside Google. And I would say that many people inside Google hate that division. For example, because they say that Google Play can do whatever they want and they are not accountable of what they do. And I have to say that it seems to be true. So I wrote that open letter as a way just to release my stress and because I actually didn't have any other option. So I wrote the letter and I published it on Pro Android in Medium. And I had the lucky that it somehow got viral. I mean, so kind because maybe 400 likes and 400 retweets is not viral, but in a specific domain like Android in Christmas and it was. Actually, the guy that runs the publication in Medium told me that my open letter has been the most read article of all times in the publication. And also the Medium editors contacted me and asked for my permission to publish it on the front page of Medium. I say yes, of course. And the very same day of 13, at like 8 p.m. in the evening, I got a phone call from a guy from Google that was in Switzerland. I was like, wow. So somehow it has worked. That person told me that he had seen the open letter and that he was working for Google as a European Google Dev Relations, and that he had solved similar cases in the past for Spanish companies. Actually, he's a Spanish guy, so I was really lucky to be able to describe in Spanish to a person at Google. So he told me, okay, don't worry, I'm going to contact the people in charge of this kind of reviews. Is in India, and they don't celebrate Christmas, so I think it's gonna be fast. They are going to answer, so I'm going to request them more info. So what we got is that our company account hasn't committed any violation. Our company account had been associated to my personal account. My personal account hadn't committed any violation either. It was terminated because it was associated to a colleague account. What? And then my colleague account was terminated due to intellectual property and trademark violation. And my colleague said, oh yes, they say that in the email, but I made an appeal because I didn't know what was the actual reason. When you make an appeal, they never provide you extra information. And so the logic here is that Google Play want to avoid a bad developer that makes bad things to create a new account and repeat what he was doing. So somehow Google Play has developed an automatic software that makes association between accounts. And if one account is terminated, all associated accounts at the end get terminated also. This association, I can assure that because Google Play hasn't disclosed that. But by our personal experience, what we can find on the internet, because as you can imagine, I searched on the internet about similar cases, and there are hundreds of cases. And reasons to get associated to another account is just giving access to another Gmail account to your Google Play console that makes an association. If you use the same computer and you log to 2 different accounts, they are associated. If you happen to use the same key store of signatures in two different Google Play accounts, they also get associated. If you use the same credit card to open those accounts also. And even sharing the same Wi-Fi internet, it is said that it may associate the accounts. In our case, my colleague and me, we work in remote. So despite we have a company together, we don't work together. He works at his home, and I used to work at co-workings or at home. So, and we have never shared hardware. So the only point in common was that we were sharing access to our Google Play accounts. So the review team in India said that the termination was okay. And they were not going to reinstate it or account, because for them it's like somebody did something wrong, and this guy was making new accounts to impersonate the original account and keep doing bad things, but it was not true, because actually our company account was created years before my colleague account, so it was no sense. So what I did is I prepared a kind of like a CV, a kind of resume of my life, all my working experience, how we made a company. I happened to write about a book about our experience, so I also attached a copy of our book to the email, explaining that we worked together, but the company account was independent of my colleague account. So we have the apps of my colleague have nothing to do with our business work. All these kind of explanations many times, and days were passing by. So I thought that we were never going to get back our account, but surprisingly, 20 days later, I just got an email, an automatic email, of course, saying your account has been reinstated. Just make a modification on the Google Play text code, and in the Google Play text that describes your app, like putting a space and press a publish button, and then we got our company account back. But I have to say that during those 21 days, our units were suspended in AdPop. We have lost all our Google Play listing position of all our apps, and that our personal accounts remain terminated. When your Gmail account gets terminated, also your Google Pay account is terminated, your Google AdMob account is terminated, and you are not able to use them never again. So, as I wrote, you need a plan B. If that works like that today, you need a plan B, because your company, maybe one day, one of the developers is going to get its own Google Play account terminated, and that can propagate to to all the company accounts, and that's it. If you look at Reddit, there are many threads on Reddit about companies that I hire a freelancer to make something in our app. That freelancer got the account terminated, and therefore our company account has been terminated. And there is no way to communicate with somebody at Google. So as a plan B, I thought, well, I need to get more relevance in the Android community, and we need to make this problem visible. So I speaking and explaining to everybody what happened to us. I'm explaining this in this conference. Also, I spoke with journalists, and El Diario.es make also an article about my case and more cases. They told me that was the most read news during the weekend for the newspaper when it got published. So I'm trying to get closer to Google as a way to meet people at Google and meet people that maybe in the future is going to help me to fix that again, because I'm not sure if that can happen again to us. So for instance, as I just moved to Pamplona recently in January, I have just gone appointed as Google Developer Group organizer. It's not yet officially because I still have to sign an NDA with Google. But for me, it's a way to make that problem visible inside Google and talk about that. Also, as a countermeasure, we have developed an app update infrastructure. What is that? Is the day your account gets terminated, all your users can still use the app, but they don't know your account has been terminated, so they don't know they are not going to get more updates. So we have developed a system that allows us to show a toast or whatever, a message inside the app to the existing user, to press a button. We are publishing our APIs also in a S3 Amazon bucket. So if somehow they again Google terminate our account, we are going to be able to keep updating our apps outside Google Play without losing all these hundreds of thousands of users that we are having nowadays. But that's expensive, because I made some calculations. Just getting all our user base, getting download an APK from S3 is a lot of megas, actually gigas of data, and that's expensive. So it's like a bad solution, but at least a solution while we fix it or while we decide to pivot or whatever. We are trying to find a new business model. We are investing time in bots, Alexa. Actually, last week we published our first Alexa app about public transportation here in Madrid. I also looking as an alternative revenue source, text teaching and writing. Actually, I am also a text editor in writewenderleads.com. Maybe you know it's a website where you get tutorials about programming, iOS, Android, etc. Or just considering closing and find a new job. Happily, we are in a sector that finding a job is not really hard, so it's also an option. And that's it. Questions? We still have a bit of time, so I also wait a conference, because if somebody wants to share a similar experience or whatever, feel free.
Question?
I was going to ask before showing your plan B that apart from being tied to the Play Store, you are really tied to AdMob too.
Yeah,
And there are
but you can update the app
and use other ad platforms.
or even yes, there are a lot of advertising networks. Maybe you are not going to get as much as money as with AdMob as a basis, but or a plan B is also you can create a new isolated developer account and try to publish again the apps, but with a different signature or with a different.
Yeah, and
But
start
it's
again.
not. It's feasible. It's not easy.
Okay, thank you.
So, from what I understood, you should never share your access to the Google console. You should,
Right. Yeah,
and
that's the point.
do you think it's a better strategy to pay for GApp's company account and make some professional accounts for your coworkers, so you never associate with their personal accounts, or will it be associated with their personal account as well? We can't know.
I don't know. I actually, if Google Play hasn't disclosed that, there is a Reddit thread where supposedly the author says that he worked at Google as a stagiaire for a while after finishing their degree, and he explains that there is a tool inside Google that does this association, but there is no official information about that. But for example, this week I got, after writing this open letter, I got hundreds of emails every month of people suffering the same. And last week, a Spanish freelancer, told me, I have my professional account and I have a customer that asked me for an app many years ago. I make this app, and the customer has not updated the app. Nowadays, if you don't update your apps, your account can be terminated. So the customer account has been terminated, and suddenly his professional account also. It's incredible. And actually, I wrote a tweet, and because everybody that have the problem, I tell everybody, write on Medium explaining your case, because it's the only way to make it visible. And I wrote to Google Play at Twitter, hi, Google Play, meet Manuel, another guy that has lost his account. And I put a link to the Medium article, and Google Play answered me the first time in my life and told me, thank you, Pablo. We are going to pass it to the internal team to review that. And then they wrote a tweet to Manuel and saying, we have already answered you by email. Your appeal has been rejected. And that was so that has been the review. Actually, I think it's a problem of resources. They cannot review all the accounts, or I don't know, and they have automated that, and they have a problem. They have a terrible problem. And there is also a Reddit thread that says that some people this year at the Google I/O are planning to wear T-shirts saying or protesting against banning policies in Google Play. And we are encouraging people to ask in the Google I/O about the association stuff and how it works and why it's happening.
How it was, don't be evil or something like that.
Google is now promoting a lot progressive web apps.
Yeah.
My question is, do you think that maybe in the future it can be a plan B for us to?
No, because nowadays progressive web apps have to be published on Google Play. So.
With a link maybe, because they can be installed via the website.
Well, you can upload your APKs to or your progressive apps to your own site, but as you can imagine, in the past we were used to get software from websites, but nowadays people is not used to get software besides a Play Store.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you, Pablo.
Thank you.